Hello everyone and welcome back to the new session of Biology Chapter 15 Biodiversity, Conservation and Environmental Issues. Last time we studied about Introduction to Biodiversity, Definition of Biodiversity, Levels of biodiversity. In these levels, we studied about genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecological or ecosystem diversity. Then, we studied about patterns of biodiversity. In this, we studied latitudinal and altitudinal gradients and species area relationships. Today we'll start with importance of species diversity to the ecosystem. Let us now understand whether we really need all the diversity around us. What if few species are lost permanently? A community is said to be stable if average biomass production remains fairly constant over a period of time. It should be strong enough to withstand disturbances and recover quickly. It also must be resistant to invasive species. David Tillman. He carried out various field experiments and proved that species richness does help the stability of an ecological community. Rich diversity leads to lesser variation in biomass production over a period of time. This is called productivity stability hypothesis. Paul Ehrlich, an ecologist from Stanford, gave an analogy to explain significance of diversity. It is called rivet-popper hypothesis. He compared aeroplane to ecosystem and the species as rivets that keep all parts of the aeroplane together. Of course, there are thousands of rivets needed to hold all the parts of the aeroplane together. If each passenger decides to pop even one rivet, or in other words, if one species gets extinct, initially not much of the turbulence will be experienced. But slowly, as the number of popped rivets will increase, there will be serious threat to the safety of the airplane. Also, which rivet are removed will also matter. Suppose rivets at key positions such as the ones that bind the wings of the body of the aeroplane are removed, situation will become serious. Thus, we can say that relationship between diversity and well-being of ecosystem is not linear. But it is certain that loss of species may not pose threat to the ecosystem only initially. Some exorbitant number like existence of 20 to 50 million varieties have been made. But Robert May has given convincing estimate of about 7 million species around the globe. Biodiversity current scenario. How many species do really exist on Earth and how many of them are found in India? It is difficult to come to consensus, but the exact number of species that are present on Earth today. Though over 1.5 million species have been documented as per IUCN data 2004, so far we are yet to study a lot more than these. We are also unaware about speciation process. Loss of key species will certainly cause threat in very short span of time. It will affect food chains, food web, energy flow, natural cycle, etc. In short, it will affect the balance of ecosystem. Now let's observe the given pie charts and find out the relative share of various plant and animal groups in the existing knowledge of biodiversity. Known species of organism total are roughly 18 lakh species. Known species of animals roughly total is 13,15,378 species. Known species of plants total estimated 2,87,655 species. Now in the diagrams we do not find any data of prokaryotes. Several monerine species are not cultivable under laboratory conditions. Also, conventional taxonomic methods are not suitable for identification of prokaryotic species. India boasts a handsome share of 8.1% of total biodiversity wealth of the earth. One of the 12 mega diversity countries of the globe. India has 2.4% of total land area of the world. We have identified around 45,000 plant species and nearly double the number of animal varieties from our natural wealth. If we consider May's estimate of global biodiversity, we have recorded only 22% of our natural wealth. This situation underlines the need of taxonomists to study the biodiversity. But major concern is the possibility of loss of these varieties before we identify them because of activities like reclamation and deforestation. Loss of biodiversity. Loss of biodiversity leads to the overall imbalance in the ecosystem. The chief serious aspect of loss of biodiversity is extinction of species. There are three types of extinction via natural extinction, mass extinction, and man-made or anthropogenic extinction. Damage to biodiversity takes place due to both natural and man-made reasons. Natural reasons include forest fire, earthquake, volcanic eruptions, etc. Man-made reasons are habitat destruction, overexploitation, hunting, settlements, reclamation, etc. We are aware of 5 mass extinctions during various stages of history of Earth. The current loss of biodiversity is considered to be sixth extinction, which is progressing at an alarming rate. Ecologists blame this to the human intervention in natural habitats. They do not forget to warn that if the current trend continues, we might lose about 50% of diversity. Loss of biodiversity in any area can lead to the decline in plant production. It can lower the resistance to environmental disturbances. It can also change the environmental cycles. There are 4 major causes popularly known as the evil quadrant. It includes habitat loss and fragmentation, overexploitation, alien species invasion, and co-extinctions. Talking about habitat loss, it is the prime cause of destruction. Tropical rainforests are being lost at an alarming rate. Tropical rainforest covers has reduced from 14% to 6% over the years. Reduction in vast natural habitats and local degradation by pollution creates crisis situation for the living beings. Loss of local habitat due to human activities creates threat to migratory birds as well as those animals that need larger territories. Overexploitation. Basic difference between human beings and other animals is that humans have the tendency to accumulate beyond their needs. This has resulted in overexploitation of resources, which in turn causes threat to various organisms. Can you tolerate this with dearth of fish we observe nowadays? Alien species invasion. When a new species gets introduced into any ecosystem accidentally or intentionally, there are chances that it proves harmful for existing species. Sometimes it can lead to extinction of local species. For example, the carrot grass, that is Parthenium, lantana and water hyacinth, Eichhornia. Introduction of predator fish, Nile perch in Lake Victoria proved deleterious for 200 local species of cichlid fish. In India, introduction of African catfish for aquaculture purpose has proved harmful to endemic catfish varieties. One of the major reasons for such a harmful effect of alien species is lack of local predator. Co-extinctions. Many a times, organisms are associated with each other in obligatory way. In such cases, extinction of one variety leads to loss of associate variety from the ecosystem. For example, co-evolved plant pollinator. We are aware of threat to diversity and loss of species from Earth. When any species is totally eliminated from Earth, it is called extinct. For example, dinosaurs. The International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, that is IUCN, maintains a red data book, also known as a red list, where conservation status of plant and animal species is recorded. After a given species has been thoroughly evaluated, it is placed into one of the several categories. They are extinct, a designation applied to species in which the last individual has died or is not recorded. Extinct in the wild. It is a category containing those species whose members survive only in captivity. Critically endangered. It is a category containing those species that possess an extremely high risk of extinction with very few surviving members. Endangered. It is a designation applied to species that possess a very high risk of extinction as a result of rapid population decline of 50 or more than 70% over the previous 10 years, or you can say 3 generations. Vulnerable. It is a category containing those species that possess a very high risk of extinction as a result of a rapid population decline of 30 to more than 50% over the previous 10 years, or you can say 3 generations. Near threatened. Uh, it is a designation applied to species that are close to becoming threatened or may meet the criteria for threatened status in the near future. Least concern. It is a category containing species that are pervasive and abundant after careful assessment. Data deficient. A condition applied to species in which the amount of available data related to its risk of extinction is lacking in some way. Not evaluated. It is a category used to include any of the nearly 1.9 million species described by scientists, but not assessed by the IUCN, that is, the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. Conservation of biodiversity. Reasons to conserve biodiversity can be classified into 3 categories, that is, narrowly utilitarian reasons, broadly utilitarian reasons, and ethical reasons. Narrowly utilitarian reasons. Since time immemorial, humans are reaping material benefit from diversity. It may be deriving resources for basic needs like food, clothes, shelter, or industrial products like resins, tannins, perfumes, etc. For aesthetic use as in ornaments or artifacts. Medicinal use of plants and animals is another major factor. It shares 25% of global medicine market. Around 25,000 species are put to use by tribals worldwide as traditional medicines. Several are yet to be explored for their potential as medicinal plants. Nowadays, bioprospecting of economically important species is carried out. Bioprospecting is systematic search for development of new source of chemical compounds, genes, microorganisms, macroorganisms, and other valuable products from nature. Broadly utilitarian reasons. If we find out the cost of oxygen cylinder and try to calculate the value of oxygen we breathe with such ease, we'll understand what nature is giving us for free. Animals play a crucial role in pollination and seed dispersal. Amazon forest is estimated to produce 20% of total oxygen of Earth's atmosphere. We need to consider recreational use of diversity too. Ethical reasons. We have no right to destroy the diversity simply because we share the earth with them. All living beings have equal right to survive irrespective of their known or prospective economic use. How can we conserve biodiversity? Conservation means sustainable use of natural resources. There are 2 main types of conservation strategies. They are in situ and ex situ conservation. Let's talk about in situ conservation. Protection of an organism will automatically take place if its natural habitat is protected. This is called in situ conservation. This is the most appropriate method of conservation. It is nothing but conservation at home. For example, announcing Kanha Forest as Tiger Reserve. It has been estimated that protection of these diversity-rich hotspots can reduce extinction rate by almost 30%. In situ conservation also includes introduction of varieties traditionally used in farming and horticulture. 34 biodiversity hotspots have been identified by the conservationists. These are the regions with high species richness as well as density. These areas need to be protected strategically by setting legislative measures apart from awareness and conservation. In Maharashtra, Paura tribals in Satpura have protected varieties of corn with different colored kernels. India has three of world's biodiversity hotspots. They are Western Ghats, Eastern Himalayas, and Indo-Burma region. India at present has 14 biosphere reserves, 19 national parks, and 448 wildlife sanctuaries. In Maharashtra, there are 5 national parks and 11 sanctuaries. Indian culture and traditions are always connected with nature, and rituals are laid down to protect biodiversity. In many cultures, stretches of forest were set aside and protected in the name of Almighty, which are called sacred groves. Such sacred groves are found in Khasi and Jaintia hills in Meghalaya, Aravalli hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghat region of Maharashtra and Karnataka, Bastar, Sarguja areas of Madhya Pradesh. Sacred groves serve the only chance of survival for some endangered varieties of animal and plant species. Tribals do not allow to cut even a single branch of tree from sacred grove. But with increasing lust and greed, are sacred groves safe? We must think about it. Ex situ conservation. In this type of conservation, living beings are protected away from their natural habitats in special settings like wildlife safari parks, zoological parks, botanical gardens. These serve for this purpose. Animals which have decreased in number are allowed to breed in captivity in order to protect them. For example, Crocodile Bank of Chennai. Nowadays, modern techniques like tissue culture, in vitro fertilization of eggs, and cryopreservation of gametes are used to protect endangered species. Seed banks are established to conserve wild varieties of food grains and vegetables. By now, we have thus understood the immense importance of biodiversity and dire need to protect it. Biological Diversity Act 2002. India participated in Earth Summit Rio de Janeiro and is a party to Convention on Biological Diversity in 1992. In order to provide framework for sustainable management and conservation of our country's natural resources, Government passed Biological Diversity Act in the year 2002 in compliance with 1992, that is Convention on Biological Diversity Act. The law broadly defines biodiversity as plants, animals, and microorganisms and their parts, their genetic material, and byproducts. It excludes value-added products and human genetic material. Regulation of access to Indian biological resources as well as scientific cataloging of traditional knowledge about ethnobiological materials were the main objectives for proposing this act. A three-tier system has been established with National Biodiversity Authority at the national level, the state biodiversity boards at the state level, and biodiversity management committees at the local level for approval of utilization of any biological resource for commercial or research purpose. It is mandatory for foreigners, NRIs, as well as Indian citizens and institutions to seek permission from NBA, that is National Biodiversity Authority, before exploiting local resource. NBA or National Biodiversity Authority has powers of civil court. Not seeking approval of NBA can incur jail and fine up to 10 lakh rupees. I hope you understood the topic. We'll continue in the next video. Till then, take care of yourself. Thank you.